Sister Young came into my house with her baby Alice in her arms, almost fainting with cold and hunger and dripping wet. You are listening to Saints in the South. Welcome, everyone. This is Season 2, Episode 95. We are Saints in the South, representing saints everywhere, and we are your source for gospel growth and good times. Whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, go ahead and hit the subscribe buttons, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Saints in the South. And then ultimately, you can check us out on our website, saintsinthesouth.com. This week, we are in sections 125 through 128, a voice of gladness for the living and the dead. So, Uncle Andrew, if you don't mind, just kind of give us a little background of kind of where we are and kind of what's going on before we jump in here.
So they're in Nauvoo, but people don't know that Joseph's in Nauvoo. Right. He's actually in hiding.
Yeah.
Going house to house. He's been charged for
well, at first, but he's escaped from Missouri. So I'm sure they're still wanting to get after him for that.
Yeah, he's old bandit, Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit. That's right.
He's on the run. He's on the run.
That's
so but then also he's been charged supposedly for trying to
the assassination attempt
of Governor Boggs,
him
and old Porter Rockwell. So he's in hiding. People know he's there,
in and out.
Yeah. But people know he's in Nauvoo, and so again, that's where we're at right now.
Okay,
we're gonna be in Nauvoo for a little while. This beautiful city. It's getting built right now.
That's right. It is causing a lot of problems with malaria and stuff, and them mosquitoes and swamp infesting area and stuff. So speaking of that, getting on into the 126, so revelation given to Brigham Young after he had returned from his last mission. And in previous years, anytime I come across this section, I read it, and yes, Brigham has faithfully served. The Lord accepted his service, and he's from hence on and forever to take care of his family, basically. And so, again, in times past, I would read that. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Great job, Brigham. And I flip over and go to the next section. But now with our Come Follow Me curriculum and the revelations and context and everything. So I click on that, and definitely got some additional context to this. And so I will forever look at this section differently than I have in times past. So Brigham Young, he's married before he meets the second wife, Mary Ann, who we're going to be talking about here. But do you remember her, the first wife's name?
So first wife's name was Miriam Angeline Works. They had 2 daughters before she passed away. She contracted tuberculosis. And just one of the things that I had mentioned that I had read a little bit just said that she had tuberculosis, therefore she was pretty much bedridden. And so he got to where he would do all the work, all the chores of the house. And then, he'd do the breakfast, he'd dress the girls. Then he'd take, Miriam, his wife, and place her by the fire where she could be warmed by the fire. He'd go off to work, which I think he did things like restore furniture and things like that was what he did. Matter of fact, I got to see his tool chest, in what's it called? The Lion House, or what's the place called there? Or the Beehive House. I can't remember. Anyway, they're in Salt Lake City. You can go in, and anyway, I saw his tool chest, huge, big old chest, big as this couch almost, had just full of wooden tools and all kind of different things he used. Anyway, it's amazing that he carried that with him across, the United States. But anyway, so that's what he did, that he'd go work all day, come back home, and do the dinner, wash the kids, whatever, did all the stuff that he needed to do around the house for her. She subsequently died, obviously. But anyway, his experiences from that situation of helping his wife and stuff with the house and learning all those, doing all those chores and things. He counseled the saints on these subjects and teasingly boasted that he could outdo most of the women in the community at housekeeping.
That's cool.
So
typical
Brigham Young.
That's right. That's right. That's a typical Brigham Young quote there.
Yep.
So he marries a lady by the name of Mary Ann, and he's very, very complimentary of her. He later wrote in his life, he said, Mary Ann took charge of my children, kept my house, and labored faithfully for the interest of my family and the kingdom. So we're going to find out that that's going to be the understatement of the year, I think, here. Brigham shared on how he felt about missionary work. He said, I wanted to thunder and roar out the gospel to the nations. He later recalled, it burned in my bones like fire pent up.
Yeah.
So he was all about getting out as much as he could to preach and teach the gospel.
Lion.
That's right. The lion of the Lord. That's right. He said, when called to preach the gospel, he never objected, even though it required him to leave his family, and Mary Ann never objected either, even though he was gone for half of the time for the first 5 years of marriage. He was a part of Zion's camp, which took him away for about 4 months. And then for the next couple of years, he served on several different missions that would take him away for 5 and 6 months at a time. In letters, he expressed love to Mary Ann and their children and acknowledged the sacrifice his wife was having to make in bearing the burden of raising a family on her own. And then upon returning to Kirtland in the fall of 1837, he found the town in turmoil. And his loyalty to Joseph Smith made him a target of the church's enemies, and he had to flee for his life, leaving his family behind. Then Mary Ann and the children were terrorized by apostate mobbers who frequently came to search her property and bombarded her with threats and vile language, frightening her to the point of damaging her health. When Mary Ann finally joined Brigham in Far West, Missouri in the spring of 1838, he was shocked at her condition. He said, you look as if you were almost in your grave. So she's had it rough. And my advice to any of you brethren out there is to never tell your wife that looks like she's about to go in her grave and everything. So
no matter how true it is, brethren.
That's right.
Don't say it.
Brigham said it.
I was going to say,
President Brigham Young.
Brigham said a lot of things.
Exactly. It just it reminded me of those hard summer times when the kids are home all day with the mom, and they are literally terrorizing mom for everything they have and so forth. So don't come home from work and say, honey, you look beat down.
Yeah, you look terrible.
You look great. So soon after their arrival to Far West, an unpublished revelation instructed Brigham that he was not to leave his family again until they are amply provided for. And that time would only last for about a year, as the Quorum of the 12 were called to serve a mission in Great Britain. So 2 months after Brigham's departure, the family ran out of food. Still suffering from the effects of malaria, Mary Ann was forced to take action to relieve their hunger. On a cold, stormy November day, she wrapped herself and her baby Alice in tattered blankets and set off in a small rowboat across the Mississippi River. During the journey, the wind-whipped waves soaked both her and her baby, and upon reaching Nauvoo, she went to the home of a friend who later recounted, Sister Young came into my house with her baby Alice in her arms, almost fainting with cold and hunger and dripping wet. Mary Ann refused her friend's offer to let her stay. The children at home are hungry too, she insisted. Procuring a few potatoes and a little flour, Mary Ann wended her way to the riverbank to row home. Many times she crossed the river to obtain the barest necessities of life, and sometimes in storms that would have frightened women of ordinary courage. So she's having a hard time. A few more things. Mary Ann was forced out of her room in the old military barracks. She took up residence in a horse stable in Montrose and spent the winter eking out a meager living, sewing and washing for others. She would paddle back and forth across the Mississippi River to work and care for her family and garden until she was able to build herself a very small and fragile log cabin that only had blankets to cover the window and door openings. So she never complained in her letters to Brigham and never let him know just how much they were suffering. After being gone for 22 months, Brigham returned home and discovered how dire the circumstances were for his family, and he immediately began working to improve things. A week after being home, on July 9th, 1841, Joseph Smith visited him at his home. Mary Ann was likely there. No account survives of the conversation or circumstances of the day, but no doubt Joseph saw firsthand the evidence of the Young's family sacrifice and continuing need. He dictated a revelation on the spot, now found in section 126. And just to kind of recap here, verse 1 says, "It is no more required at your hand to leave your family as in times past, for your offering is acceptable to me." And then verse 3, "I command you, take especial care of your family from this time henceforth and forever." Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a long-winded background, but I think it's necessary to really provide the context to section 126. And I think if y'all can, pull up that and read about that, Brigham's service and Marianne's sacrifice and service and everything, it really adds to the significance of that section there. So it's not just Brigham, your time is complete and your service is acceptable to the Lord, and now take care of your family. From now on, I'll think of Marianne and the sacrifice that she put forth when I come across that section.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that just, it's a testament, all the resources we have out there to help us with a 3-verse section. Right. Some little tiny section, you think, okay, well, that's good. Next, when there's so much information there.
That's right.
It's just awesome.
So moving on into to sections 127, 128.
Mm-hmm. Baptisms for the dead.
Yep. Baptisms for the dead. So Seymour Brunson was a very well-liked man, and he died at the age of 41. And he served on the High Council, faithful from the beginning to the end. Again, everyone kind of a cool dude, And Joseph Smith picked, out of all the times, he picked a funeral where the emotions are high, where people are probably reflecting on people they loved who passed away, and just seeing Seymour Brunson reflecting on his life. Joseph Smith is asked to talk, give a sermon, and he reads 1 Corinthians 15, and introduces the baptisms for the dead as Paul taught. Early Christianity, it was they were trying to come up with a rescue plan, but for whatever reason over the years got shot down. But Paul again taught about it in 1 Corinthians 15. So people got happy.
Right. Yeah. Right.
They got super excited. And that day started going to Mississippi River. It's like, man, old brother Joseph, man, I want my son, I want my mom who's passed away to be baptized. And again, like with a lot of things, line upon line, precept upon precept, as time goes on, we'll learn in these sections, there's order, there's order, witnesses,
right.
The how-to.
Yeah. So these are basically instructions.
Exactly.
And it's interesting. So these are, let me see, does it say that they're revelations, or does it say that they're just letters?
I believe they're letters. I believe these sections are letters. They're not necessarily.
Yeah. That's what it says in epistle, an epistle from Joseph Smith.
Exactly.
Both of them. And it's actually, he's got his name signed at the end of it.
Yeah. And he's in hiding. So what happens? He reveals it. Well, he gives this at a funeral, and then he goes in hiding
again. Okay.
And he's got some time. He's got some time to ponder on the order of doing this. And as I've heard Marcus say before, all things, things are being reinstituted. Is that the verb?
All being restored.
Yeah, restored.
Everything's restored.
So it's
and these are things that have happened since the time of Adam. I mean, this is all part of the gospel. Everything will be restored. Just at some point, it has to be as part of the prophecy and everything that the Lord needs to do. So, and I love that President Nelson says today, the restoration wasn't a one-time thing. It's still happening today. Things are being restored. Things are going to get restored as we go. So
any idea on the date or the time when you said the early Christians were trying to do something like that on the baptism?
No, some Augustine or somebody.
I was going to say it's probably during the Great Awakening, what they call the Great Awakening, when everybody started trying to become a little more enlightened. The Great Enlightenment, I think, was called, or something also, where people started thinking like, wait, there's something to do with this, like a New Testament style. Right. We need to really go back to the roots.
Along with the many branches of the different Christian faiths and everything.
And like I say, it's right there in the New Testament. Paul himself talks about baptisms for the dead, literally baptisms for the dead.
Right. Why are they then baptized?
Why are they then baptized for the dead if they're not going to be resurrected? If we're not going to be resurrected, and so it's pretty interesting.
Well, so I got a quick story for y'all. So back when I was about 6 months prior to going on my mission, you're all gung ho, doing as much as you can, getting ready and so forth. And so I started getting and doing some family history work and everything. And my grandparents on my father's side are staunch Jehovah's Witness, true to the faith and, all the way. And it was really, we never got into religion conversations with them, just because it would, it didn't really end up going very well. But anyway, so I'm over there one day and I'm wanting to get some family history information from them. And so I start asking them questions, and, I don't think they realize what I'm doing. But come to find out, a couple of days later, my grandmother gives me a call, and she says, "Hey," she says, I just want to touch base with you on kind of asking those questions and everything. She says, "I just want to make sure that when your pop and me pass away, you're not going to baptize us, are you?" And that,
oh, wow,
that caught me off guard. I was not expecting that, and I don't even remember what I said, but here we are, 25 years later. My grandmother and grandfather have since passed away, right. and we have done their work and everything and stuff. So, but I mean, it just goes back to it making sense, right?
Yeah.
As far as everybody has the choice to make, but Jesus did command that in order to enter the kingdom of God, that everyone must be born again. Yeah. And that's through baptism.
And they have that choice. Your grandparents have that choice of making that, of accepting that or not.
Right.
It's not forced upon them. Nothing is forced upon us in the gospel. We have our agency. The Lord will not tamper with that. I have to make a correction. It was not from the time of Adam. Baptisms for the dead were not performed until after Christ's resurrection.
Very good.
Because obviously they couldn't get baptism until Christ was resurrected. These people were still, the bridge had not been created yet in the spirit world from, for baptism and things to have, all that.
Yeah.
So I have to correct myself. I had to go back. I was thinking, wait a minute. I don't know if that's
for not catching that.
Right. Well, no, I knew that.
Thinking it, but
I knew that.
And you had some background.
Well, the Spirit must have touched me or something, because I was like, wait a minute, go back and look at that. And so I went back to an Institute manual for Corinthians, and it says no baptisms for the dead were performed before the Savior visited the spirit world and bridged the gulf between paradise and spirit prison. So vicarious baptisms were performed only after Jesus was resurrected. The only Bible passage that mentions vicarious baptisms for the dead is 1 Corinthians 15:29. So obviously
there's not a lot of information.
This was after Christ was resurrected. So
again, I mean,
right. And that's why Paul actually said that. He was posing a question. He was like, if we're doing it was in the context of it wasn't in the context of should we do baptisms for the dead? It was in the context of, since we're doing baptisms for the dead, being that we're doing them, why would we do them if we weren't going to be resurrected? So I think there was a problem with maybe some of the Christians. Maybe some of them didn't believe in the resurrection still, and some things going on. So he was actually preaching about and teaching about the resurrection here. He wasn't preaching about and teaching about baptism for the dead.
Right.
He was just saying, why do we do that if we don't believe in the resurrection?
Yeah, he used that doctrine to clear up
common practice.
Doctrine.
So I have to clarify that. It was not all the way back to the time of Adam. It is an eternal truth, though, that had to be done, and the Lord knew it would have to be instituted, but it was not instituted until after Christ was resurrected. I'm sure Rick Long had a heart attack as soon as I said that. He's like, "Oh, no. And so I'm correcting it now. You have to hang in there with us before you put that comment in there. I did catch it a little late, but and it's our agency. We accept that, and whether
very good. And I'll just make one last point about baptisms for the dead and the family history work and so forth, and how easy the church has made it. With the technology that we have, and being able to click on the app, take a name, and if you filled out your information and you really started, I can click on there and I can find people that are ready for ancestors that are ready for baptism, washing anointings, endowments, and everything and stuff. So pretty cool.
I will mention this, but you mentioned that because it just brought it to my mind about doing ancestry.com and stuff like that. So it's the easiest it's ever been today.
Yes.
It literally is. I mean, like literally we've done it. We've been like rushing to go out the door to start our temple trip. We're about 4 hours away from the Orlando temple. That's where we go to the temple. And literally we're like, all right, let's jump in the van. Let's go, trying to get, a temple trip for the church. Something, got to meet at the church at 4 a.m. or something. You know how we do.
Right.
And so we're trying to rush out the door and literally go, let me grab a couple of names. And literally you can get on the computer and in 20, 30 seconds, you can print off a couple of names. I mean, it's really that fast. It's super fast. Your own family, you know what I mean? And one thing that I think about, and a thought that's come to my mind, is to make the temple personal, make the temple trips we take personal. And what I mean by that is take your family with you to the temple, not just your physical family you have here, but take your ancestors with you. You know what I mean? We have that opportunity to do that. Okay, real quick, 24 in section 128, verse 24. I'm not going to read the whole. It's a super long, really good verse. But at the end, it says, let us therefore as a church and a people and as Latter-day Saints offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness, and let us present in his holy temple, when it is finished, a book containing the records of our dead, which shall be worthy of all exception. So this is what Elder Allen F. Packer of the 70 taught. He said this book that it talks about in that verse will be prepared using the records of names and ordinances in the church's family tree database. This is in 2014. He said this in the church's family tree database. He said, I am checking and adding records to this database because I want the names of all those I love to be in the book. Don't you? That's what he says. Very and this is that book that Christ himself said, hey, we want to make a holy sacrifice, and to present this offering. And that offering is these names. He says, family history is more than genealogy, rules, dates, names, and places. It is more than a focus on the past. Family history also includes the present as we create our own history. It includes the future as we shape future history through our descendants. So anyway, I thought it was very, very interesting that, and he's got longer in that quote there than that, but that's the offering we'll make. He says, I want those names to be in that book. I want my family's names to be in there, and that gives you a little drive too, to say, hey, I need to do better. And I do. I myself, I do need to do better with family history work. I almost feel that the Lord's laying it in our lap now. I remember my mom back in the 80s and 90s doing family history work, and it took all day to fill out. And I remember helping her and thinking, this is awful. I mean, seriously, as a kid, 12, 14 years old, whatever I was, and helping her fill out paper, just forms.
Right, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I was like, oh my goodness, how can this be, oh man, why does this have to be a commandment? This is awful. This is so long, it takes forever. And now today, here we are, we can literally do this, hit 3 buttons and you got 5 names you can print off. I mean,
that's right.
Unreal, unreal. Yeah. So,
and it is I could tell a huge difference when I take personal names, like when we took our grandparents.
Absolutely.
Great. I mean, we've done several lines up and it's, I think all of us have, it's a big difference when you take personal family names to the temple. So
yeah. Bring your family with you to the temple, make it personal.
There you go.
And that has more than just the living meaning. It's also those that are passed on.
I like it. All right, there you go. Episode 95 in the books. Until next time, y'all keep on striving.